Good evening. It is 6 o'clock. Welcome to the Planning Commission for the City of Mequon, March 20th. Would ask staff to please call the roll.
Sure. Commissioner Barnes? Commissioner Gentes?
Here.
Commissioner Hawley? Here. Commissioner Chorin? Here. Commissioner Stoker? Commissioner Lemke? Here. Alderman Stralchuk? Here. Chair Parrish?
Here. Good evening. My name is Brian Parrish. I'm the Mequon Common Council President, Alderman for District 6, just stepping in for the mayor this evening. Alderman Stralchuk will be assisting as well. At this time, want to remind anyone here, we have a great audience for this evening. If you're here to speak, there's a card in the back of the room. You're welcome to fill out the card and then just bring it up to staff right here. That's Robin. And then she'll get it to us for that time. We'll hear you when it's that item. At this time, we're going to move into the approval of the minutes from February 27th, 2023. Any questions or discussion?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Minutes approved. At this time, we're going to move into the public hearing. We have two separate items this evening. The first item is Mickelson Builders for Geno Pack. The applicant is seeking conditional use grant to allow for a dwelling unit to be added to the existing residence for the property located at 12875 North Highgate Court. Do we have a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second and a third. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now in public hearing. We do have one individual registered to speak, Mr. Fred Doms Jr. And feel free to step forward and come to the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Fred Doms. I work at Mickelson Builders. I'm here with the owners, Geno and Sandra Pack. We're here seeking a conditional use grant approval. We feel like we meet all of the conditions, and that's about all.
Thank you.
Great.
Anyone else here to speak for this item? Seeing none,
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. We are now closed. A brief introduction from staff, and then we'll hear from the commission.
Sure. According to our definition, a kitchen is defined as an area with a sink, refrigerator, and a stove, range, or oven or cooktop. And this is important because for the Pack family, they are working on this new beautiful house. They've added 2 mother-in-law suites, and that was the original plan. So you can see what is highlighted is 1 mother-in-law suite. On the one that's highlighted, they are intending on adding a oven to it. Thank you. So that would make that part the accessory dwelling unit, which is why they are here today asking for that conditional use grant. Sorry, I keep losing my button here. So the ADU meets all the code and requirements as the applicant understands in the limitation for the occupancy. And those occupancy limitations are found in the code and also found in the conditions of approval in front of you. Staff does recommend approval for this item.
Thank you. Take it back to the commission. Any questions, comments? Alderman Strelchuk.
This looked really pretty straightforward and well planned out. I'm going to make a motion for approval.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 None opposed? It is approved. Thank you very much. Moving on to the second item in the public hearing, Gerald Nell Inc. for Wreckers Company. This is on page 26 of the packet, by the way. The applicant is seeking expansion of a non-conforming use and building and site plan amendment approval to allow for a car wash and ancillary facilities for the property located at 11155 North Wauwatosa Road.
Move to go into public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. We are now in public hearing. I do not have anyone registered to speak for this item. And there is someone in the back. Oh, I'm sorry. Why don't you step forward to the podium and make your remarks? Please state your name and address. Yes, and if you're the applicant, thank you for being here. That's the right place to be. Okay, well, we're gonna, I guess, thank you.
Second.
Public hearing, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Public hearing is now closed. Let's have a brief staff report. Ultimately, staff's recommendations will be to table. However, I think this could be a good opportunity for some productive dialogue with the developer so that they can work with staff over the coming weeks. So why don't we start off with staff, or yeah, we'll do staff and then turn it over to the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. As you stated, the applicant is requesting a building and site plan approval for a car wash at a site that's considered a non-conforming use. It's a gas station located in a B1 zoning district. So this addition of a car wash is actually expansion of a non-conforming use, and we hold it at a higher criteria when we go through the review process. Essentially, for a plan commission to be able to even make this eligible for approval, the plan commission has to determine in writing if the expansion or intensification is consistent with public interest. The expansion and intensification will not have a negative effect on the property or the surrounding neighborhood due to visual appearance, increased pedestrian or vehicle traffic, noise, smoke, odor, or other similar factors. And additionally, no expansion shall be permitted unless all elements of the site and building plan meet current code of the B1 zoning district. And that's where we do kind of come into some hiccups and what I'd like to go over with you tonight. Just maybe actually to give a little more background for operations. The gas station is currently staffed with 1 to 2 staff members, but they're talking about bringing that up to 2 consistently, being a staffed per shift. The car wash is proposed to operate under the same hours at the gas station, which currently is 6 in the morning to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then 6 in the morning to 8 p.m. on Sundays. However, staff recommends that these hours of car wash need to change to be limited to be more in line with what Quick Trip and Jilly's Car Wash was approved for, which is starting at 7 in the morning instead of 6 in the morning. For the building design, I have the rendering up on the screen for you. This is an 878 square foot car wash. It stands approximately 3 feet shorter than the convenience store. The facade and roof of the car wash will be constructed to match the materials and color of the convenience store. Materials include painted brick veneer, sheet metal paneling, and EIFS on the facade, and dimensional asphalt shingles on the roof. The north and south elevations will have 2 glass block windows on it. Staff is a little concerned about this. It makes the building look a little dated. And so staff would like to encourage the applicant to maybe consider a different type of window cover. 2 10 by 10 polycarbonate overhead doors are proposed for the east and west elevations. The west elevation also shows a 7-foot door. However, there wasn't any details provided for that door for our staff to be able to do analysis on. No rooftop or ground mechanicals were shown in the plan. However, if they are needed, they must be screened according to code. Signage was also shown on the rendering, but this cannot be included in the approval process. That has to go through the sign permit process. For the site plan, let me just grab that for you. And I apologize, that is a little small. Let me see if I can blow that up. There we go. As you can see, the car wash is proposed to be on the south side of the convenience store. It's approximately 20 feet from the property line and does meet all setback and offset requirements. The queuing of the car wash is along the west property line. This allows all that queuing lane to be somewhat hidden from Mequon Road and Wauwatosa Road. And as many car washes have issues with excessive queuing, hopefully this back property line will allow for more queuing. Staff has concerns about this queue lane and drive lane behind the store, however. As you can see, the outline here is where they intend to stripe the queue lane, but it gives the appearance that there's a second lane here, and it's not wide enough to get a car through. So if you have a couple cars in this area, any car trying to travel behind here would actually get stuck until that queue line cleared up a bit, and then they could come through. Staff also requested a turning analysis, and it showed that to be able to get around this building, you have to enter into that queue lane. So staff is recommending that they redo their striping to indicate that yes, there is only one lane and not a second lane. And on top of that, we'd like to go and request signage stating that this is only for car wash patrons only, so nobody gets stuck in this area. Staff is also a little concerned about this area here behind the car wash. We do want that feature which allows people in the queue lane to be able to exit if they choose to not go through the car wash. However, the way this is designed, when people come through here and try to go into these parking stalls here, there could be a bit of a risk of collision because it's coming around the corner here. And on top of that, the way this island is, it's pretty short. So even though we're suggesting that there's a painted marking saying do not enter, that painted area could be covered by snow, somebody might not see it, etc. So we are hoping that we can convince the applicant to extend out this island a little bit further to discourage people from entering in this way, getting trapped in the queue lane again. So that would be through signage and the expansion of that island. The other issue that we have with the queue lane is the location of the garbage enclosure. As of right now, this is proposed to remain exactly in this place. So for a dump truck to get it, or a garbage truck to get in here, they would have to back up through here and make sure that there's nobody in that queue lane. So there would have to be some coordination with the garbage collection company to serve this dumpster in its current location. The car wash kiosk is located right here. The applicant did address some of staff's concerns about protecting that kiosk, so they did include a curbed area and bollard to protect it. However, when we received the planning documents, they did not include details of what that kiosk would exactly look like. They provided us a couple concept drawings, and we do need to have more finalized details to be able to do our analysis. New asphalt is also proposed in this area here, as you can see in the gray, and that is the only new asphalt being proposed right now. There's an area right here that has asphalt, but that will be removed and replaced with just grass landscaping area. In your staff report, staff also included a pavement analysis, and that pavement analysis showed that pretty much all the north side of the site has new asphalt. However, areas west of that are pretty degraded at this point, and so staff is recommending that the asphalt is going to be replaced in all the areas located on the analysis map that doesn't say new pavement. Staff completed a parking analysis for this site. It requires 13 parking spaces. Part of that calculation is the 8 parking spaces shown under the pump. So we've got 4 here on the east side of the convenience store, 8 at the pump, which then brings us up to 12. In addition, there's 6 new ones being proposed here near the intersection of Mequon Road and Wauwatosa Road. A vacuum and air pump facility is located near Mequon Road with no discernible parking spaces currently. That's right there where my cursor is. The proposal shows that the vacuum and air pumps will be replaced with 2 new combo units with vacuum and air pump included. 2 of the 6 new stalls will serve this area. Again, this is another situation where we didn't receive any concrete plans for these combo units. We just got a concept drawing. Many of you might be familiar with like Jilly's Car Wash, where they have the giant boom over serving it with the vacuum. We're a little concerned about those details, and so staff couldn't complete the review on this and would like to have that so that we can also see how this is being screened with the proposed landscaping. On to landscaping. Let me just quick grab that for you. This is the proposed landscaping plan. The plan shows that the majority of the landscaping will remain as is on the site, except a few trees, some arborvitae, and a few shrubs around the periphery dispensed throughout the site. The plan does not meet code for street trees. For parking lot shading for 30% open space requirements and parking lot landscaping. So while it's difficult to meet that 30% open space requirement given the existing structures and site plan, the applicant hasn't really made any effort to go and address the spirit and intent of that 30% requirement rule, and so staff is requesting them to improve their landscaping plan to meet that. Staff also has concerns about the lack of planned investment in the landscaping and the reliance on neighboring properties to provide screening and shading. The majority of the plantings planned to be kept are overgrown, they're in poor condition, or they're dead, as seen in the attached exhibit in your staff report. The existing landscaping doesn't reflect the quality of landscaping installed in other properties surrounding the corridor. For instance, we did include the Wisconsin Vet Clinic's landscaping plan, which will be directly to the west here along that way, just so that you can see the difference in investment and the attractiveness of their landscaping compared to what's going on at Mobile. In addition, staff has some concerns about some of the stuff that's shown on the landscaping plan. As you can see, there's this nebulous blob of green shown up here. That actually is not landscaping on their site. That's landscaping on the Wisconsin Vet site directly to the west. That was there up until a few weeks ago, but because they're prepping the site, they took down almost all the landscaping on the Wisconsin Vet site, which then took away almost all the shading that they're showing in this plan. So staff is overall recommending that the applicant update the landscaping plan to meet all code requirements, incorporate higher quality landscaping, and create some features to meet that spirit of the 30% open space requirement. As for the the lighting plan, no additional lighting was proposed. In summary, and I'm sorry that was a little long, staff did provide a table just outlining all the deficiencies in the code, areas of concern, unknown details. Staff does recommend tabling the decision to allow the applicant additional time to meet these requirements that would then make them eligible for approval and address the issues identified in the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. At this time, we'll turn it over to the applicant and would love your feedback, and then we'll.
Used the old site plan drawn up from the original building, and I verified that with an overlay from the GIS county, and they were very, very close. I did a green space calculation based on that, and I ended up with 36.7% green, non-impervious area, pavement buildings. I verified that just as that, it was enough over, but I wasn't really concerned about it. I never brought it up and addressed it. So I did a measurement this afternoon based on the actual survey, licensed survey that we have now, and measured 36.8%. So we've met the spirit and the intent of the 30% green. And yes, we can look at all these, through the winter, it's hard to tell what's dead and what's not dead. Yeah, there's probably some down branches of brush. We will have our licensed landscape architect take a look at all that.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Could you please speak into the microphone just so we can pick it up for recording purposes? Thank you.
Just need to point at me. Yeah, we'll have our guy go in there. They're from Nelson Landscaping. They've been in business for decades. We've used them on most all of our projects that we've done over the years. Gerald Nell has over a 50-year history of building design. We're a design build contractor, and we've done a lot of buildings and done a lot of landscaping. We've done a few in Mequon. We've done a lot in Brookfield with very stringent landscaping requirements. We know what we're doing. Nelson Landscaping knows what we're doing and what they're doing. So we'll have them come through. They'll evaluate it, see what's worth keeping, what's not worth keeping. We were not aware. We did not do an exhaustive survey of what was on that border. We didn't know that the neighbor was going to be tearing all that out. So now evidently it has to be done. It'd be good to do it in the spring once things reveal whether they're alive or not. That'd be a good time to do it. So we'll take care of that. Yeah, the street tree issue, we can put some street trees in. We made an effort to screen those vacuum pumps there, vacuum machines. the existing blob there is pretty high. I've got a view of from the street, from Google Street View. You can't see the vacuum pump that's there past those, and we're adding some more. So you'll really have to try with the new landscaping to actually see those things. There will not be a canopy over the vacuum pumps, nor those big arms. That is not our intent to have it that type. We will make an effort to come closer to what the kiosk is in back. You'll have to you'll have to really try to see that. The only time you'll see it is when you're actually in line and you're approaching it. It'll be really hard to see unless you're already driving back there. To move that painted line, not a problem. We can move a painted line. In fact, we could put up a bollard to prevent people from trying to go create a second lane. That's not a problem. Bollards aren't expensive. We don't want people getting stuck back there either. As far as the parking on the east and someone making a wrong turn to try to go in the out lane, we have no problem eliminating, let's say, one of the last space there, having 3 parking spaces there, designate those 2 regular spaces for staff. The 3rd one for handicap needs to be there for customers. The missing space could go out in front. We're not, the parking out in front there by the vacuum pumps, that is not any new paving. I just drew standard size parking spaces up until you get to the vacuum pumps, and then you've got 2 spaces for vacuuming your car. I was not aware, I understand your ordinance designates parking as a minimum. I was not aware of a maximum for number of spaces. So yeah, I can erase a couple of lines if you want, but the paving is going to remain the same.
What about the asphalt replacement for the full site, extending the curb?
If the asphalt's going to break up and create a hazard, I see no problem with replacing that.
Okay. And then staff's recommendation for the curb extension?
Well, for the curb extension, I guess that's just along the west side.
I didn't cover it in my recent presentation, but we did also request there's curb stopping, like, the concrete curb stoppers outlying on the west property line. Gives illusion that there's actually parking there, but there's not. So staff requested that those be removed and curbing be put all around the periphery of the parking lot.
Thank you.
We'll have to see about the entire, but on the west side along that route, I think that we can make that work for curbing on that piece. The remainder of the property, we'd have to take a look.
Okay. Anything else?
The windows, they could be changed to regular aluminum frame, but we know, having done, I don't know, probably 2-3 dozen Quick Trip stores, glass block is typical on all their car washes. It's just the right way to do it in that case, whether it looks dated or not. The windows we're showing on the south elevation of that thing, they have no function. They're spandrel. They're just there's gonna be concrete block behind them. So, and once it gets landscaped and everything grows out during the growing season, you're not gonna see those at all anyway. So it's kind of a moot point. I don't think it's gonna bother anybody, because when you take a look at the backside ground level of the building to the south of us, there are no windows at ground level on the first floor of that building to the south of us. There's 4 flush metal doors and 0 windows.
I think with the windows, maybe just explain to staff why block windows are needed. Otherwise, I think
They're there on the south side because staff asked for them. We showed them only on the side that the cars drive through, the north side of that in the drive lane at first. They thought it would be good to have them on the south side.
Sure, staff can also speak on that. We requested that because that faces southward. And again, this is another one of the situations where they're relying on the landscaping from the adjoining property to provide screening of the building. There was a couple addition of arborvitae that were added in on the updated landscaping plan, but for the most part, the landscaping is actually on the neighboring property.
Thank you.
Some of that's yours, yeah.
Why don't we bring it up to the, oh, yes.
Can you turn on your mic?
Oh, I'm sorry. Could we go to 48 on the PDF?
Page 48. This is for trash collection
The
we're
existing
talking.
landscaping. I'm sorry, it's this page right. I guess if we could zoom in, I just for myself want to understand. I mean, those are all landscape trimmed bushes. If you scroll down again, you can see that. Right now it's the middle of winter, and I understand that. And we've had a different type of snowfall this year, so I understand we have to clean up things from a landscaping perspective. However, I guess I'm not sure exactly what's required beyond maintaining the property, adding and cleaning up. I get that, but to say that it's not been taken care of, I just don't understand that.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay.
Well said. It's one of the gateways to our city, so appreciate staff making sure that it lives up to that standard. Why don't we bring it up to Planning Commission for any feedback and questions? And Commissioner Chorin.
As I listened to your report, in the past, when you bring up some things, we can get the applicant to react to it, and they're fairly minor, things that can be documented. But as you proceeded, you started to get to a point where I think it would be hard to record them without some sort of drawing or something. So that's problematic to me. So I think I agree with the position of the staff.
Alderman Strelchak.
So I've got a couple questions. You were counting a couple of the parking spots as pump locations?
That's correct. Our code for gas stations, the gas canopy, any gas pump parking spaces actually count towards that total.
I'm pretty sure I won't get to park there for a half hour. You'd be a little upset. Can you go over the non-compliance and then the increased non-compliance and just really kind of walk through those items? We kind of mixed in a bunch of other things, and then I'd also like some commenting on the noise levels. I know we just approved residents to go in next door. We have residents nearby. Just to the south of it, we do have an office building. But my concern is the overall green space of the property, as well as the noise level as it relates to adjoining residential. So I'm a little concerned there.
Staff was actually working on possibly approving this, and we did come up with several conditions, one which was addressing the noise issue. We did have a couple residents that reached out to us about that concern. We thought hard about this and wanted to go and have it match with Quick Trip and Jilly's, which required them to stay at a decibel level of 70 or less. So that would be mimicked in whatever approval they eventually would get.
And that's at the property line, correct?
Would you like me to go over the rest of the compliance issues again?
Yeah, that was just the first item. Thank you. Yeah, what percent did you come up with?
We had it just a smidge below.
Just a smidge below. Okay, so it's close. Just, just a little feedback. This has been a Mequon business for quite some time, under a couple different names. It's a staple. We want to see it succeed. I think it's a convenient place to fill up your car, especially if you're traveling along that corridor, where several other places aren't, just in general. The biggest issues that I'm going to bring to the table and things that I'm going to be watching closely are going to be the noise as it relates to the property line, just because you have residents that are literally going in right next door and they're going to be very close. If it's 70 decibels at the property line, I forgot what the setback was, 20 feet. So 20 feet into that property line, your decibel reduction is not going to be that great. And that, in my opinion, would devalue the property adjoining to it if a car wash went in. When that was approved, there was not a car wash, to my knowledge, on the table for discussion. Otherwise, I would have brought that up for the other applicant, just from a point of consideration. The 30% is important to me. The streetscaping is important to me as well. I'm not looking for a gas station / car wash to be a country club designed landscape, but I'm looking for something that's going to be professional and sustainable. You are entry to our community. You're in one of the key spots within the community, and we need to continue representing that corner as such, for our community. So those are kind of the basic things that I'm going to be looking at. The through traffic is, if you get 4 to 6 cars backlogged, I want to make sure that you've got room to do that, and you're not going to be creating an accident situation coming in from one of the roads. The parking spaces, I'm not overly concerned. Just staff, that's one I would be a little flexible on. I mean, we don't want to overpark it, but if to meet their green space, they need to get rid of 1 or 2 or whatever. And quite frankly, I personally don't, whether the code counts it or not, I don't count pump locations as parking. I'd want to see a few parking spaces so they could park and go in and spend money in the store, as well as enjoy the services from the car wash and the vacuums, as it's related to it. So just kind of looking at how the business would operate as we're evaluating parking is more critical to me than the actual physical number.
Great points, Rob. Any other feedback? Commissioner Stoker.
To hold this the whole time you're talking now? Is that okay?
Hold her down.
All right, my finger may get sore. So I was in a quick trip drive-through car wash today that did not have glass block windows, but I will tell you that they were completely steamed over. You couldn't see through them. They're dripping water. So aesthetically, once they're there, I think you're going to be happier with block windows. Personally, my opinion, they look terrible, just from the outside in and the inside out. So that's just a comment. With respect to the parking lot shading, do they get credit for the canopy over the gas pumps? Is that included in that at all or not?
No, that's strictly for landscaping.
Okay. So I guess I'm sensing that you don't want to table, you want to get moving on the project. Where are we really? It sounds to me like they're willing to work with us on everything. Is there a main sticking point that you've gone over a lot of things? I get it. Everything they've said sounds like they want to work with us. I'm just seeing if there's any way that we can get it approved with your blessing without having to come back in front of us. And maybe we're not. Maybe we can't get to that point. But is there any main sticking points that you are getting the sense they're not going to want to comply with? Yep. Okay, so to the applicant, why can't we get a picture of the kiosk or the vacuums? What is the holdup here?
We can provide a picture of a version of the kiosk, but we can't get final versions, and because we're not even through the planning phase. We have to be able to go to these car wash companies in order to ask for quotes on equipment in order to get it, because there's a variety of them. However, I guess the closest it would be just, I don't have a kiosk picture, but it would be a standard car wash kiosk, I guess, and not
I'm envisioning like the one I inserted my credit card in today
exactly
to get a car
yeah,
wash.
just
So
the
can't you go
box.
take a picture of one and provide it to staff, or?
We have provided a picture, to my understanding.
Yeah, there was one that would be acceptable aesthetically that we provided the picture of, but I was, it would look no worse than that. I think that was the point of my submission, without knowing that that was going to be the one that we were going to have.
I guess I'd turn that to staff. I mean, do you need the exact kiosk picture, or can you like a similar type kiosk? It's not going to be seen. It's totally not visual from anywhere on the property. I get you want to see it and understand it.
I don't think we're all that worried so much about the kiosk. Our big concern is the vacuums and the air pumps, given that they have, in conversations, really not been able to fine tune what they're going to give. We've seen different iterations of it. And so staff has some concerns about what is the ultimate ending of what this is going to look like. The last thing we want to do is approve a landscaping plan that will not be able to properly screen this. And again, we have a lot of concerns about the landscaping. And the
I don't think we have the conditions of approval spelled out in the packet that even if we'd really have to spend time getting it right tonight. So, I mean, I think the goal is really to get you, so that you can work with staff between now and next planning commission meeting so that it will go really smoothly for you. I mean, I think if you go to page 30 and 31 of the packet, that's what I was trying to point out. I mean, there's so many things here, and I think you can address most of them pretty easily. Commissioner Barnes.
There we go. Thank you. Just all in all, I agree with staff's findings on status of, pending things to be reviewed that look like they could be addressed pretty easily. Two concerns or wonderments I bring up is one with the proposed layout for for your parking and where the air pump and that type of thing. Simply is, how is that going to work with the fuel truck deliveries? Will the fuel truck deliveries interfere with the intended new commercial or customer use? That's one question I have. And I don't need an immediate answer, but it is something that I think ought to be pretty clear for customer use and so forth. And then the second thing I just want to emphasize, it's picking up a little bit on what's been stated, and I know talked about before, but it's the vehicle queuing for the car wash. And I'm always thinking of nearly all year round, there's no problem, very few vehicles using it, but it's that Sunday afternoon after the snowstorm, and you're going to have heavy use, and that's all well and good and fine. So I just want to be sure that we're doing everything we can for accommodating those occasional lengths of vehicles that are going to be backed up. And how is that going to be addressed, be it, if some staff comes out or whatever. And I think that the marking of the queue area ought to be extended even further back, closer to Highway 164. But I won't get into specifics as much as I think real clear delineation for the vehicle operation, and that it be a permanent marking type. Because that's an easy, put the white paint down and it's good, and then next year it's worn away. So it'd be something that's a permanent striping for delineating.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. Alderman Strelchak.
You want to talk first?
Everyone will have a chance.
All right. Sorry, I'm taking a second chance here. Just to close a little communication gap between staff and the applicant. Staff wants very specific plans. the applicant's talking in language where it's going to look similar to, we've got a quality landscaper and we trust them and they got 30 years in business and they're a good landscaper, and I've seen their work and it is good. So, I mean, commending you for choosing a good one. What we need as a governing body within the city of Mequon are plans to approve. So if you think you're going to walk into the next meeting and just really kind of wing it and just kind of talk through on what it could look like, there is a little bit of that at the tail end sometimes, but most of this really needs to be buttoned down with actual plans. I want to see a landscape plan to meet staff's needs. I want you to work with staff on that prior to the next meeting and have that submitted appropriately. I'm simply, we've got a non-conforming use and an extended version of a non-conforming use per the packet. You're in a unique situation. If it was a conforming use, there might be a little more flexibility, but because it's a non-conforming use, we're just really making sure our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. We're not trying to make it burdensome on you. We appreciate you bringing this forward as an opportunity for the city of Mequon and the residents within the community. But we really just need to see, what those plans look like. The drive pattern, having that mapped out and have something that you either agree or disagree with quantitative discussion on, and where you might be flexible on that plan moving forward. And then I think our decision up here as a governing body will be a lot easier to either approve or not approve or approve with changes, right? But just I don't want to have you wait a month and come back and then run through the same thing and then be frustrated coming back. So
Yeah, the only thing
hopefully that's fair.
No, that's totally fair and agree. I look forward to working with you guys. The only difference is, we're not a Arby's. We aren't a massive chain. Like we're not even a Quick Trip size. We're a family-run business that's been around for 100 years, and so it's, I don't know if it's fair to hold us to standards of a international food chain. And so we're going to do our best to work together to get to what we need to get to, as you have asked and provided. And so, thank you very much.
Right. I don't need to see your menu boards, but I need to see a landscape plan in writing.
And we treat everyone consistently too. So, Commissioner Stoker.
Yeah, I guess I just followed. I don't think there's anything insurmountable here by any stretch of the imagination. We just need more detail. And the last comment that I want to make is, and I want to be respectful to Alderman Strelchak here. You're going to have to meet the sound code no matter what. Where I differ maybe a little bit than Alderman Strelchak is the new residents being built immediately to the west. They knew this was a gas station. It's always had vacuums. They knew there was a car wash being proposed. So your job is to meet the code restriction, and once that's met, then I have to vote in favor of this. So make sure that gets accomplished.
Mr. Zader.
I just want to clarify for a record, the adjacent to the west is actually the vet clinic. The residences are the parcel over, just so there's no confusion there.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll move to table.
Second.
That is not debatable, so why don't we call a roll? Or all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Tabled. Please work with staff. We greatly look forward to having you back. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just a reminder for everyone in the room, if you wanted to register to speak for any items on the agenda, please be sure to fill out the yellow card in the back of the room and get it to Robin up here. We are now going to move into the regular business portion of our agenda. The first topic is on page 55, Arch Solar CNI for Harry and Rose Sampson Family Jewish Center. The applicant is seeking minor request approval to allow for rooftop solar panels for the property located at 10813 North Port Washington Road, Ganami Preschool. We'll start off with a brief staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The solar panels that are being proposed here will supply approximately 50% of the center's annual energy needs. Wisconsin state statute limits local restriction on solar developments. It's really important to take in consideration as we move forward with this consideration. According to the state statute, restrictions are only allowed in situations that preserve or protect the public health and safety. They cannot, we do not significantly increase the cost of the system or significantly decrease its efficiency. And the restrictions only allow in situations that allow for an alternative system of comparable cost and efficiency. So essentially, we cannot change the location of these panels if it causes efficiency issues unless we can find out another alternative solution for them. The plan proposes the installation of 64 solar panels covering approximately 1,300 square feet. I apologize, let me just get this on the screen so that you can see exactly what we're talking about here. So as you can see, we've got solar panels facing the east elevation and then down towards the south elevation. 16 panels will be on the east, and then we've got the remainder on the south. The south solar panels will not be visible from Port Washington Road. This is primarily due to the significant amount of tree coverage located on the Cedarhurst Senior Living Community property just to the south. The solar panels on the east-facing roof line will be visible from Port Washington Road, though. Staff did identify a couple compliance issues with this site that we were hoping to have addressed. Let me just grab that map for you. Staff identified a portion of the parking lot has been placed approximately 20 feet over the property line and does not meet the 20-foot setback requirement. Staff can't identify when this was put in, and it was definitely not approved through Plan Commission. Therefore, staff recommends as a condition of approval that this portion of the parking lot be removed, landscaping be restored, and curbing be installed to make a continuous curb line along the drive lane by June 1st of 2024. So we are requesting this in about a year and a half, hopefully giving them ample time to correct the situation. In addition, staff has noted that the site does not meet Section 58-5064 of the landscaping requirements, including street trees, parking lot shading, and landscaping between the public road and parking lot. In staff's opinion, at a minimum, street trees and landscaping to screen the parking lot from public view should be installed by November 1st of 2023. This is also to help reflect the fact that the city is going through a streetscape program right now for Port Washington Road, and so this will also enhance that corridor's appearance. In conclusion, staff recommends approval of the building plan based on the conditions provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? Do you have anything you would like to add?
No.
Name and address. And,
Pretty much sums it up.
Okay.
Thanks for letting us apply for these. I think it'll be a cool project.
Yeah, we thought so. In the 20-foot parking item, I think staff was very reasonable, giving you until 2024 to figure out a solution for that. So it's
So I work for the solar installer. So we, I guess for them to install the panels, like would the solar installer be responsible for that work?
no, but the applicant should be aware of what.
Oh, okay.
You know, we're about to vote on this. So
Okay.
do you think they're okay? Okay.
Okay.
Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Chorin?
Move to approve based on the comments from the city staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda, page 63, Eastbrook Drive, LLC. The applicant is seeking development agreement and building and site plan approval to allow for 10 side-by-side condominiums for the property located immediately west of 11649 North Port Washington Road. We'll have Jack make a presentation, and the applicant is welcome to take a seat up at the desk.
Thank you, Chairman. So this was in front of us last November for a PUD amendment. Basically, this is phase 3 of Lexington Square. The plan you have in front on the screen is the site plan that pretty much mirrors the concept plan. As if you recall, there's 2 buildings located on the north end and then 3 on the south end with a driveway coming in through here and then a driveway coming through here. Again, they meet all the requirements of the R6 and the PUD and the PUD amendment. Throughout this process, there's been, I think, maybe too much conversation about building design. I did have some comments originally at the last planning commission. I met the architect, Marty Chorn, came and met with the applicant, and the common council weighed in on the architecture as well. So we ended up having some number of different iterations to the plan. So I'm kind of go through where we ended up, and we're looking for feedback from the commission. So this was the original concept plan. It showed basically the front having like a shed roof. It looks like a stucco type material with some more earth tone colors. I think at the time staff was a little concerned about the materials as well as the shed roof design. The applicant did come back with another design that had a little bit different roof line, a little different material, a different entranceway. And then there was a discussion at one point about having the garages separated. We were concerned about having the garages next to one another. So then they came up with a third design, which basically is the current design, which shows, let me just zoom in a little bit, which is the top version. And what we try to do here is try to emulate some of the developments in the neighborhood. But the hard part is with this building width is not quite as wide as some of the other ones. We'll get Astorwood, Eastbrook Court. Those are roughly 90 to 100 foot in width. This is only about 70. So it was difficult to try to totally emulate what we were looking at in the neighborhood. So I guess staff was concerned and maybe felt maybe the option 2 might have been a better option than this current option. I will show you what, I just took some pictures of what's out there now. So this is Eastbrook. As you can see, they have the roofs, the garage is separated. They have a big gable roof on each end, but they have a lot more substance in the middle in terms of the building and the roof line. And then this is Astorwood's, kind of a similar design, but again, this is a lot larger building footprint than what's being proposed here. So we're looking for some feedback, some direction from the commission on what design to go with. And eventually this actually ends up getting approved by the Architectural Review Board. The Planning Commission's role in this is to pick a concept design, and the Architectural Review Board will decide on final design materials and locations and things like that. I think there was something on the day asked about a neighbor sent an email regarding landscaping. Basically, the concern, I believe, and I'll try to get to that page in a second. There was a concern over the landscaping along Eastbrook Drive. It didn't state either side, but I believe it's probably both where the concern comes in. So on the north side of Eastbrook Drive, you see this area here where it says remove trees. This is an area that has a number of different existing pine trees and some deciduous trees in there. Those have to be removed for 2 reasons. One, because there's a sanitary line that runs through there, but there's also basically the driveway location. If you recall, at one point I was trying to get them to kind of use the ends to access the site in and out, but our public works director did not like any driveway connection near this intersection with Eastbrook Drive. So I think those are going to be very difficult to keep, but we are recommending as a condition of approval that they add street trees along that stretch to match the pattern, which is directly to the west in Eastbrook Estates. And then there's another issue of trees on the south end, which I'll get to a little bit. Oops, I think I went a little too far. So here they're showing not too many. There's a couple of trees being removed. You see 3 here, 1 here. These are some evergreen trees are being removed for the development. They're replacing some of the on-site landscaping back in the yards of these buildings, but they're not replacing these trees. There are also a couple, at least from what I could tell when the snow was here, there's a couple of dead street trees that were actually removed and not replaced. So if those are still in that condition, we would like to see 2 new trees there as well. Other than that, overall, we're supportive of the plan and recommend approval according to the conditions in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zader. I don't believe anyone had anything to say about this matter. No one's registered to speak. I did have several of the homeowners reach out to me just over the course of this process and ask questions, and they all seem very supportive of the project. They understand it's going to be built on. Seems like the screening along the main road there is the main concern. Jackie, you said that the main reason why it has to come down is because there's a sanitary sewer line underneath it. What is?
Yeah, well, there's 2 things.
One, but why does that mean the trees have to come down?
Well, in order to put the sewer in, they're gonna have to dig it up. You're gonna
That's
impact
a
it. But there's
run.
also
Yeah.
a driveway. I have this is the proposed plan up in front of you, and I can show you both. But the driveway itself is also an issue, as you can see. The driveway is coming through here, and then I believe that hatched area is the sanitary sewer easement. So there's a sanitary sewer easement here in the hatched area, and then the driveway here. Those two things combined make it difficult to keep those existing trees. Now, as you can see, there's white area outside that sanitary sewer easement. This is part of the public right of way. This is where I'm proposing that we add street trees every 30 feet on center, and that would match kind of what happens down as we go west towards Eastbrook.
Got it. This time we're going to take it to the applicant for a brief presentation, and then we'll discuss it up here.
My name is Greg Schumacher with Seascape Architecture. We started out with the project with having garages side by side, and then through conversations we went to having the garages split. At this point, we're happy with the garages being split, so we're looking for guidance from you guys to tell us which way you want to go. We spent a lot of time going back and forth, and that's the name of the game. But we do need somebody now to tell us they're happy with the garages being split, or nope, we really like them together. Because I think both designs are good designs, but we just need some guidance.
Jack, can you clarify, wasn't this going to go back in front of the architecture board once once they move forward?
Yes, the architectural review board will approve the final building design. Our role here is just to approve the concept design.
Okay. And so there's three options that you had in the packet. Do you want the commission to tell you, like, we only like option 1 and 3, or we only like option 1? Is that?
I would like some direction on one of the three options. I do apologize to the applicant. They've been very well
Sounds like they've been great.
cooperative with us, but that it just kept kind of changing, and you know how architecture gets. Everybody has a little bit different opinion. So we're just looking to keep this process moving. So we're hoping to get some kind of consensus from the commission. And the hard part is, again, we were trying to emulate the rest of the neighborhood with the garages separated and try to keep some of the consistency with the architecture. And it's kind of hard to do because, again, from end to end here, they're tight against 20-foot setback on both sides, and they have a 15-foot setback in between the two buildings. So there's not a lot of room to play. And I think they even had to modify their floor plan to separate those garages. So again, we're just looking for feedback, and then once we have a concept plan decided upon, that recommendation will go to the architectural review board, and they can work on the details of the locations of the materials, the brick, the stone, and things like that.
Thank you. Any other comments or issues with the recommendations by staff in the packet?
No.
Good evening, Tony Zanin from Pinnacle Engineering, civil engineer on the project. There's two comments about access points. One on the north, we understand, keep it as far easterly. That's been kind of the theme going back to the approved plan in 2019. The one on the southern end, we did some changes back in 19. We originally had a due east-west, so when you came in, the engineering staff at that time felt like if you came in and you were heading due west, you would drive right into the site, and they didn't like that idea. So we put that curve in it, and we're kind of south of the median. So if you leave our site, you would kind of direct yourself to the south side of the median to drive easterly. I think when we were here a few months ago, there was some conversation about shifting it 50 feet further east from what you see on the screen. Today's condition is 30 feet further east. So you'll see, if I don't have a pointer as Jack did, but yeah, you see that curve there. We would twist it even further southerly, 30 feet. There's also a sign on our property that's actually not our sign. It's the neighbor sign. So if we shift the road, we're going to really get into that sign, and our vision's going to be, our vision triangle on that driveway is going to be more impeded. So that's going to make that sign a bigger issue. I definitely can work with staff on it. I just didn't want you guys to approve it and say, we have to move it 30 feet, and then to find out, the more we get into I just saw these comments on Friday, so I haven't talked to Cole yet on them, but I don't want, if he and I can work it out, if we come to conclusion that this is the right spot, I don't want your approval to say, hey, you have to move it 30 feet. We can talk it. I don't know if this is a place to talk more about it, or if we could just, if you're going to do the approval. just-
Well, item 13 of the conditions of approval says the south access point shall be moved south of the existing Estabrook Drive medium, approximately 30 feet south of where it is currently shown on the submitted plan. So that sounds somewhat definitive. Cole.
I was gonna say, can you guys hear me? I was gonna say I'd be fine with striking that condition and then just working with the applicants. We don't want it getting into that sign either, especially with vision coming out. So I'd be fine with just removing that condition of approval if you guys are okay with that.
How would you want it stated?
You can just remove it completely, or you can say move it.
Want them to work with you or not work with you? Because if you remove it, they don't have to work with you on it.
Right, we could just do, applicant must move.
Let's work with staff.
Sure, yeah.
Final driveway location on the south end to be determined with staff.
Noted. Any other matters we should discuss? Thank you. Turn it over to the Planning Commission, Commissioner Chorin, and thank you for meeting with staff and the applicant for this process.
Well, the plan illustrates having the driveways separated, the garages separated. We spent time together. We looked back and forth at the different options, relative to where the driveways are, where the garage doors were, where the entrance was, And if you look, and what struck me when I'm looking at the pictures of the existing, is it Astor? What, Jack, Astor?
Eastbrook and Astor. So this one is, the top one is Eastbrook, the bottom one is Astor.
I mean, if you notice, clearly the garages are separated. So if you want to be somewhat sympathetic to that, I think that's the right approach. I don't like the idea of having the garages up against each other, right next to each other. It almost looks like a parking lot. So that's why we moved to the recommendation or the discussion about separating the two garage doors. We talked about the entrances, we talked about the different materials, but I think what they've presented here is in the option 3 is the right approach to take.
Alderman Strelchak.
I agree 100% with Commissioner Chorin. I think that the work that you guys put in to get to this point is definitely worth your time and energy. What we have before us tonight in option 3 is a significantly more appealing design. You've stated it works for you, which is a win for both of us, or all of us, I should say. So I would be consistent with Commissioner Chorin and recommend option 3. I think it's great looking. I didn't like the first 2 versions at all, and I really like the third one. So real big strides you made. Thank you.
Any other feedback? I don't know that option 3 was what staff was fully recommending, but
we didn't really have a recommendation on this one. We
Yeah,
were kind of torn, and so we were deferring to the commission on that.
Yeah.
one. So.
I like 3 too. I don't sense a lot of natural materials on it.
I mean, you
Maybe
could
it's just
you could recommend 3 to the architectural review board with their prerogative to hammer out the final details of design in terms of material locations and quantities.
Is 3 missing natural materials as a concept, or is it?
They do have.
It's really light on.
Well, one of the original versions they did submit to us showed this center section being all brick or stone, and then they did remove that. So they're showing a belt line basically around the entire building. One version is brick, one is stone, and then there's another version that shows an alternate roof line. So again, if you want to recommend anything specific to the architectural review board, like additional stone or brick in that center section, or just a higher quantity of brick along the front, that's something you could add to that, or you can leave it up to them and let them decide. They deal with our single and 2 family designs, monthly.
Well, my opinion would be we should leave it up to the architectural board, and for whatever reason, this is just a rendering. It looks light on natural materials, and I think the city is very clear on its percentages of natural materials.
Well, it's like 1 and 2 family. We don't really have we require 4-sided architecture or a focal point of brick or stone in the front. So that's really how they treat single and 2 family. There's not an actual percentage. I'm sure Mr. Stoker can.
I'm going to call on Commissioner Stoker just for the benefit of there's a lot of neighbors around this neighborhood. This is our one chance to weigh in and make sure that the way it looks from the road is pleasant. So what do you think?
Then you called on the wrong commissioner. I would respectfully disagree. I think the first version is way better. When you look at the separated garages and the other two examples, there's no living space above that. Now you've got forced living space above garages, and to me that looks cheap. That's just this is what you'd see in a more of a starter type home from my own perspective. So I respectfully disagree with Alderman Strelchuk and Commissioner Shoren. If this is the route we're going down, I don't know we have the ability to change or override architectural.
Well, you have the ability to decide on, again, the concept. So if there was a unanimous decision or a majority decision to go with a different option, you can do that. They still have final design of the building itself with materials, but again, the concept they can't then override you on. Yeah.
I'm guessing there's more cost in buildings because you've got vertical structures, so they're probably trying to eliminate some of the costs.
No, we actually had stone in the middle and on the sides going up Parshway, but we were asked to remove it.
There was, I don't know if I have this, I'd have to go to the actual packet. There was some side elevations that you can kind of see it here. There was this section here had a bump out with stone, and when we met with our Marty and I met with them, we had them remove that. We didn't feel that was necessary. It was kind of heavy. It was sticking out.
No, it worked good. It's just we suggested to us that we remove some of the stone. That's kind of.
We need some more dialogue here. Commissioner Holly.
I actually prefer option 2, honestly, not to be like the lone wolf, but I do kind of agree with John. I mean, it's your building. I mean, do you prefer option 3?
We prefer option 3 for the interior layout. So
you do, okay.
Getting an extra den out of there, so there's a little more space.
Yeah. Okay, I do agree with John's comments, though. Honestly.
I mean, visually and aesthetically, I still like 1 and 2 better than 3, but where do you guys?
Sure. So we get an extra room out of option 3.
Yeah, I mean, I would defer to you. You're the developer on this. If that's what you want to do, I'm perfectly fine with that. And I would say that the architectural board is probably going to give you some comments as to what they're going to want to see, but I'm fine with that.
I just want to clarify that only these 2 buildings will actually face the road. These will all be faced interior, so we're really kind of talking about the facade of those 2. So.
Okay, good feedback. Other commissioners.
I'll just
thank you, Commissioner
Lemke.
Say
I'm going to defer to the architect. I've got an opinion, but 6 opinions here is not going to clear anything up. So I will defer to what Marty wants to say on this.
Okay. And I guess my final feedback would be more natural materials in the front facing buildings along Esterbrook. Perhaps just those 2 buildings. Yep, near the front entrances. And I don't know that I should stipulate the percentage.
No, I think you could just say if you add a condition for choosing option 3 with the architectural review board, determination of additional stone or brick material on the front facades.
Great, and then another reminder to whoever will be making the motion will just be about item number 3.
So why don't I start the motion? We'll make it a working motion.
Yep. There we go.
I'll make a motion for approval with design 3, showing the 2 garages separated, adding a little bit more stone to the front entrance area facade as determined by the applicant and architectural review board, and then the condition 13 of the driveway location to be reviewed between the applicant and staff, having staff have final sign off on the location of that.
Well said.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion is approved, and we look forward to having your investment on the site finally. It's going to be great. Thank you. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, page 131, the green at Mequon. The applicant is seeking final plat, street plan, and landscape plan approval to allow for a 7-lot conservation subdivision for the property located at the southwest corner of Villa Grove and Freistadt. We'll start off with a staff report. We don't hear you.
Gotta
Sorry.
love the button. It's really getting all of us, isn't it? Is it okay if I just start off with the preliminary plat or the final plat meets the approved preliminary plat and PUD requirements except for the building setback for the private road. Staff included a condition of approval that the final plat be amended to show a 30-foot front setback from the pavement edge of the private road instead of 11-foot setback from the private road easement as shown in this plat. The street tree plan was approved by the tree board back on February 17, 2023 with a suggested amendment to replace the proposed northern catalpa with a common hackberry. I'm sorry, I butchered that. The trees are required to be installed by December 31st of 2023. The proposed landscape plan meets code and PUD requirements except for the height of the evergreen trees, which cannot be less than 7 feet tall at the time of installation. As a condition on the approval, staff requires a letter of credit and escrow for 125% of the cost of the landscaping. The planting shall also be completed by December 31st, 2023. Staff did identify some site compliance issues. 2 specimen trees that weren't approved have been removed without Plan Commission approval for the in the fall of 2022. The applicant has an outstanding fine of $4,100. Staff recommends that the final plat not be recorded until the fine has been paid. Engineering, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Nothing major to add other than just a few outstanding easements to be recorded as well as reviewed by the city attorney. Those include both public utility and private utility easements. And then just staff punch list items if there are any.
Overall, staff recommends approval.
Thank you. We will turn it over to the applicant. Great. Do you have anything to add?
I do.
Let's go.
I would like to discuss the $4,100 fine at some point. I don't know if tonight's the right time to do that.
This would not. We have a tree preservation ordinance that was broken, so you'd have to go through a different process. I don't believe it's this body's purview. But I understand it was an accident, not to get into it. You'll work on that. So, great. Anything else to add? Oh, and we don't have anyone registered to speak, so we'll bring it back up to the commission. But seeing no discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion for approval.
Second.
All in favor, or any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Approved. Congratulations. All right, next item on the agenda. We do have 2 people registered to speak. This is page 148, Swan Ridge Farms. The applicant is seeking preliminary plat development agreement, open space plan, landscape plan, street tree plan, and fill permit for 30,000 cubic yards approval to allow for an 83-lot subdivision for the lands immediately south of and west of 10129 North Swan Road. Jack, take it away.
First, or did you want to?
That's a good idea. So then the staff can address any comments from the public. So far, I have 2 registered to speak, and then I'll ask again. It seems like most people may be here for this item. The first person registered to speak, they do not indicate if they're supporting or opposed, but Jane Chavaco, and she wishes to speak. So please step up to the podium, and we have your name and address already.
So I am 101.
Wow.
I think we've all adjusted to the 83 houses, but the shock to us was the phase 1 and phase 2.
Yeah.
And the fact that phase 1 is so far south that current existing properties will not be included in the renewable water system. So when I asked the engineers,
Hold on 1 second.
We're not able to hear you up here.
We really want to hear what you have to say, but unfortunately, it's.
hold it. Okay, so don't hold it. All right.
There you go.
So when I asked,
Feel free to close the doors in the back too. There's some discussion.
So when I asked the question to the engineers, why wouldn't the existing houses be connected to the sewer and the water at this time? With phase 1 being so far to the south, we're very far away. And they said that the developers only wanted to develop a certain number of lots. And it seems to me like if you eliminated Signet Court and came down the 12 lots on Migratory Way, you could then at phase 1 connect the existing homes to sewer and water. So that was our main concern. The other thing is you've been talking about trees and trying to preserve trees. You know, this field has been farmed for like over 100 years, so there is a natural tree line that extends roughly 18 feet to the west of our lot lines. Could those easements not include destroying all those existing trees? When I look at the plan, there's a bike path at the top. I would just like to make sure that that is connected to Foxkurt Drive, so that if you are on that bike path, you can get out to that street. And then I was very concerned about the new addition of the water right by the kids' play area. I'm a pediatrician. I feel that if you're drawing kids to an area with a playground, you shouldn't have water right next door where they could drown. So I don't know if the phase 1 layout as it was presented is an item for discussion or not. And then the implications to us not being connected to the sewer for potentially a few years has implications to us because we've already signed the agreements to get into the sewer service area, which limits our abilities to maintain or replace our holding tanks, which obviously neither of us want to do since the sewer is imminently going to be connected. So those are my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Chavaco. Next individual registered to speak, Ms. Kristen Hempel, opposed to the project. Please state your address and let us know what you think.
Hi, I'm Kristen Hempel, 10144 North Concord. There are just some of us from Huntington Park that don't feel our concerns were addressed by our alderman in previous discussions, so I felt like getting our concerns written down, just kind of the top ones, would be helpful. So number 1, Wilson School already had to move 100 kids out of the school, and it would be requested to have in writing that additional families from this subdivision or any subdivision in the Wilson School District be rezoned prior to starting 4K, so that those kids that already had friends, made connections, don't have to change mid-elementary school again. And that would be kind of throughout the city too, if you could make that an option. And then number 2, a few neighbors are concerned for the water displacement. I see it's always written in stuff that like MMSD and the DNR. Maybe if it could just be presented in a way that we all understand. Is that possible?
I wish the same thing. So.
Yeah.
Go on.
And then, because I feel like I just want to say it out loud, I know it's a dream, and if the proposal would not go through, I'd personally willing to fundraise the sale price and hopes to donate the land to the Mequon Nature Preserve for them to be able to uphold the natural habitat and expand all of their wonderful community benefits they already have in place. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out tonight, Ms. Hempel. Would anyone else wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, let's have Mr. Zader address some of the public comments and present it to us in general.
Sure, I'll address some of that, and I'll turn it over to Cole for some of the more technical issues with the sewer. So what I have up on the screen is the preliminary plat. This is being one of the things requested this evening, along with development agreement for phase 1, landscaping plan, street tree plan, open space plan. The preliminary plat you have in front of you meets all the requirements of the zoning change that was done in May of 2022. They increased the distance of the lots along the 2 frontage roads to 75 feet per the ordinance. They also made all the average lot widths meet 110 feet. They incorporated all our suggestions and recommendations, including so the sidewalks will run along the main thoroughfare as well as through here. It'll tie into the bike path up here, which will tie into the streets here and go across here. So there'll be 2 connection points into Huntington Park for our bike path. It'll also then come down to this location to get into the area where the tot lot and the fire pit is. So overall, the preliminary plat, I think we're supportive of the way it turned out. The issue that was brought up by the resident that lives in this house right here is that these 2 houses were actually incorporated into the sewer service area at the time when the zoning or the sewer service area expanded for the entire area. At the time, it was not contemplated for a 2-phase development. The proposal now, as you see on the screen, would be phase 1. This location to the south of the dotted line, and then this is phase 2 over here. We asked the same question basically as she did, why can't we phase it front to back, but there's a grading issue that wouldn't allow that to happen. So in order to get the sewer to those 2 houses, they would have had to extend the sewer line from this point basically to here as part of phase 1 or outside of phase 1, but simultaneously with the development of phase 1. So I can have Cole discuss what the engineering department came up with a solution to address that issue. It will delay the extension of that sewer for a couple of years, but we will have an escrow or a letter of credit that will guarantee that connection take place. In terms of the landscape plan, everything looked good. The street tree plan was approved by tree board. The biggest issue that I had addressed with the applicant was the lack of screening along this long outlot. There's very few trees in this area here. Some of these are excess trees that they could not fit on their street tree plan. So some of those are just additional trees that they placed there, not really meant to be as part of the approved screening plan. I did recommend in the report additional about a total of about 120 trees in that location. I think I did have a conversation with them. I think they're concerned with the pond layout. There's a pinch point here where they might not be able to get the depth, which I can understand. But I think there's still a lot of room in this area. So maybe 120 is a little extreme, but there's definitely room for additional trees. They did send me a plan about 3 o'clock this afternoon. I did not have a chance to vet it out for tonight. But I guess I'll defer to the commission whether they want staff to handle that or do you want to see that plan back. Other than that, overall, I think we're supportive of the changes to the plat and recommend approval. And I'll turn it over to Cole. He can kind of fill you in a little bit more on this sewer issue.
Sure. So the couple of things I had about the sewer, I guess first off is one of the conditions of approval in this is the eventual sewer utility district commission approval for the relevant section of the development agreement. There's a pretty substantial chunk in that development agreement draft that's in the packet that does relate to the sewer extension and everything. What we're suggesting, proposing right now is that a letter of credit be posted by the developer for a length of time specified in here until that connection is made to those 2 adjacent properties. Those 2 properties, as Jack mentioned, were added to the sewer service area back when this first came through for rezoning, I believe. So we're just working through the final language with SUDC as well as a legal review from the city attorney on that language. And then, did you guys want to hear about stormwater? Usually no one does.
The neighbors would like to hear that. Thank you.
So I'll go over our ordinance very briefly. What we require is that the final development after stormwater ponds are constructed and everything, that it actually meets excuse me, the same runoff rate or less as what it was before in certain storm events, ranging from a small 2-year storm to all the way up to a 100-year storm, which is like 6 inches of rain in the course of 24 hours. The added challenge on the developing end is that ordinance that we have is actually restricted to the runoff before has to be the same as what it was pre-development. So basically, I'm sorry, pre-settlement. So what that means is like when this was a bunch of trees back in like the 1600s or something, when there was no one living here. So it's a pretty restrictive stormwater ordinance actually for runoff.
Okay. And can you touch on, there was a comment about the proposed stormwater management pond up front by the road right next to the playground. I understand that's going to generally be a drier pond or not a wet pond right next to a
Correct.
playground.
And I did see that on the plans as well, and that was a concern. So I think we're going to have to, when speaking with the developer, it sounds like that part wasn't completely hashed out what they were going to do with that area. So I think that's something we're going to have to look out for during plan review and need to eliminate if that's the case, or reduce in size and distance.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like there may not be a barrier, that it may be an actively wet pond, or I'm trying to understand what.
I guess I would defer to the engineer, but I was on the impression that was going to be basically a dry pond where it would not have standing water.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, and we'll let the applicant address that. They're nodding yes, so thank you, Cole. Great. Applicant, thank you for being here, and we'll turn it over to you to address what you've heard. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm Joe Bukovic with Point Real Estate, and I have Mike Garrick, who's the owner and developer of this property. And I'm very happy to be back in front of you. We were in front of you initially in May for a rezone, and then we went through the sewer service area amendment process, which was finished up in December. So just kind of a lot of downtime, but we're happy to be actively working on this project again. In terms of the stormwater in that outlet on the bottom of the screen up there, it stems from a number of things, but it is going to be a dry pond. Back in the early 2000s, everything was dry. You didn't see the retention with the wet water pools. We needed, that's one area we can get fill from. What we're trying to do is bring all the basements up above the seasonally groundwater. We did numerous soil tests out here, and we have an idea of where each basement should be put. That's ultimately the reason why we want the 30,000 cubic yard fill permit later on in the discussion. But by bringing that up, we needed some extra dirt, and that was an area to get it from. And it's going to be dry. Water will be directed there during some storms, but it all drains to the south or to the left on the map that you're looking at. And it'll be gone immediately. So I don't have any concern about ponding water or dangers for children in that area. In terms of Miss, I should know your name, Chervaco. In terms of the phasing, the sewer's coming from the southwest, which is the top left corner, coming from Huntington Park, and the water's coming from the south, which is to the left on the property. So it only makes sense to start with that south road, West Huntington Park extension. And then when you're doing the construction, if you only got a small cul-de-sac, 6, 7, 8 lots, you might as well get that finished at the same time instead of going back over all paved roads to get all that done. And then there's a break and grade, basically where our phase lines are. Where the phase line is, the north half goes to the north, the south half goes to the south. So it just made a lot of sense from a constructability and a development standpoint to do the south phase first. I didn't realize when Ms. Chervaco got accepted and her neighbor got accepted into the sewer service area, that it was all one phase and that she was expecting it right away. And we were in a development meeting 3 weeks ago or so with staff, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, and they said it had to be extended. And I was like, whoa, it's extending sewer like 1,400 feet to the cost of about $200,000. And putting that in up front causes its own challenges with the roads not being done and just constructability. And I do like the solution that engineering came up with and Public Works came up with. And we're good with that. It's written in the development agreement. So, and then to the street tree plan, the buffering along Swan. I know Jack didn't get a chance to look at that, but we did add significant trees along there. We added another 50 trees, and we tried to use the metric of 1 for 30 for a street for the street trees. It's not an internal street tree necessarily, but we needed some kind of metric to go by, and that's what we ultimately went to. So there's a total of, I think it's 78, total of 78, which has included the extra trees from the internal roads for the street trees. So that's gotten beefed up, and I think we're at a good spot on that we could work with staff to finish that up. So I think I've addressed everything. If there is other questions from the commission, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'm really happy with the way the plan turned out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jack, one of the questions that came up was relating to the 100-year trees that were being removed as a result of the sewer location at the north. The
Yeah,
west.
I guess I would defer
Randy's-
that to the engineering and developer. This is the location I think she's referring to. There's looks like there's a tree line back here, but the sewer and water easement is also located. The water actually will come down, I think, and then come out and get to Swan over here. So I don't know exactly where those trees are in relation to that sewer and water line. If they're in the same spot, obviously, then they can't be saved. If it's on the property line, then it causes issues because you want the sewer and water easement on that property line so the neighbors can connect to it. So it all depends on where those trees are in location. I'm assuming the developer wouldn't have a problem saving the trees if it doesn't impact the location of the sewer and water. It's just an additional cost to take them down if they're not necessary. But I don't really know the exact location of those trees in relation to the sewer and water line that's running through there.
Cool.
The property owner just said they were approximately about 18 feet past her property line to the west, which is, I think that easement that's shown on there is about 20 feet wide. So it's pretty much the entirety of that easement. Like Jack said, with the connection, that they're going to have to bring a connection for the sewer right to where those property lines meet, kind of in the middle there on the screen. So, and I'm not sure if there'd be enough room to move that west with the stormwater facilities. I don't know.
Can the easement be moved west?
Yeah, I didn't bring back the stormwater plans, so I can't comment on how the stormwater is abutting that, how close it is. Yeah. But that's something that we can go back and look at.
Can the easement be moved west to save the tree line?
If it doesn't impact the stormwater pond, then probably. But that's something we would probably have to look through in a lot more detail.
Okay. And then there was a comment about the school district placing, and I don't think that's really the purview of the plan commission. I know plenty of families that went through the same thing, and it was stressful for them too, and I think we all sympathize. And it's kind of this one readjustment as the central growth kind of takes shape, and we have this west side of our community, and it's kind of one painful occurrence we went through, hopefully, and we won't have to go through this every year with kids being switched schools, and hopefully the school district hears you. So let's bring it back up to the planning commission and get some comments. Commissioner Barnes.
Just a couple of things. I'm for the proposed plan and I think it's well put together and so forth. So what I have is just a couple of questions, and that including street lighting. I noticed there's in the staff recommendation number 10 regarding this street lighting proposed. And I'll just start out with my statement as the adjoining neighborhood. We do not have street lighting other than, I believe, each house is required to have a light and a light on. And I guess that works out very nicely rather than formal street lighting. So I'm just looking for clarification on what would be, from a resident standpoint, continuity, integration with the adjoining.
So that condition, that's a boilerplate condition. If they do propose street lighting, they would have to get approval. So I'm not aware of them proposing anything, but if they ever do propose that before their final plat, they'd have to come and get approval for it.
Then the counter on that is that there, at Huntington Park, there is,
Like post lights with,
post light
yes,
for
correct.
each lot. So there,
Yeah. I mean, that's what most subdivisions will do, but we just have that condition there just in case they do. I don't think in the years I've been here, any subdivision proposed actual street lights throughout their whole subdivision, so.
I guess I'm looking for some lighting, minor lighting would be useful, but nothing, not street light.
Like in the common areas, or Mr. Bukovic?
All we propose, and it's written in the development agreement, are the street lights at the two connections to Swan. Would be the only street lights. And we haven't required lampposts in a lot of neighborhoods, either door lights or something to keep some light on. We're not averse to having people putting them in, and maybe at their discretion, but not requiring them for every lot.
I'm speaking from an adjoining community and what's done there in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I think even at the time of the rezoning, because we do require the typical street lighting at these two sections here where it touches Swan, but I think even the neighbors in Huntington Park did not want another light back at these two locations.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting street lights is.
No, I was just saying that typically we require one street light at an intersection, so, and they did not want that back in those locations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Confused about the water supply. Understanding showing water line connections on the streets and connecting with the Huntington Park water main system. I guess what am I misinterpreting? Are those going to be and most significantly, what if any impact will that have on the existing water system of Huntington Park?
We are not proposing to connect to Huntington Park's water system. And the latest in the development agreement is we run water main to our west property line. Probably good planning just in case something happens to the water system in the future, but we're not connecting at all to Huntington Park.
They're bringing in public water. This is a public water connection.
Okay, and so the public water would be connecting with the Huntington Park water.
No.
No.
No?
No,
Okay.
it's stopping at our west property line, just dead end with a blow off.
So it's not a management of water pressure.
No, I think the Huntington Park,
guess
if I
that's
recall, is a private water system. So if they ever wanted to hook up to ours, they could potentially do so, but the city water would have to verify they meet all our requirements, and then they'd have to, I guess, appeal or apply to connect. But at this point, they're just ending at the intersections. Yeah. Yeah.
System retain. The last just general wonderment is again, my traffic side coming in at Huntington Park Drive in your phase one when you're connecting up to Swan. In that today it's basically an L intersection. It's a heavy traffic that's going through there. And recognizing that will become a T intersection, a T-functioning intersection. I'm not supporting or saying that there should be a stop sign, but I'm just wondering if, by virtue of the new traffic pattern going through that area, if that's something that be looked at. And again, I'm not advocating one or the other, but I think it could become an issue subsequently. Concern for residents. Using L intersection today, becoming a few others.
I think that concern did come up during rezoning, and I can't remember if we required an additional stop sign at that intersection. But if not, then we'll look at that, and if there's nothing there, we could always do some traffic counts or something like that too.
Now, I'm not suggesting we put endless stop signs out in the intersections as much as simply that people are accustomed to visibility, and there's a pronounced pattern today which is going to be added with another way, such that perhaps the southbound approach would be the stop. I'm just asking that be addressed.
Thank you. And we do have some flexibility on traffic signals even after it's approved. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
But excellent commentary. Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. Other feedback, Commissioner Lemke.
Just have a quick question. What if one of those two homes has a septic issue in the next couple of years? What is their recourse? Do they have to fix their septic as they wait for this to get brought in?
We're still working at the working out the timeline for the sewer connection and the length of the letter of credit. It looks like we're restricted by state statute on what we can require for a length of time. In regards to the septic tank, holding tank, I don't really have a great answer right now. I think that's something we could maybe look into with the development agreement going to the Sewer Utility Commission. If there's anything that is that we can add or amend to the amendment that they signed to get into the sewer service area, that's something we could look into.
Okay. Other feedback from the commission. We do have another individual who registered to speak. He's in support of this item, Mr. Ken Jonas.
Thank you.
Please state your address.
My address is 9627 West Huntington Drive, which will actually connect to Huntington Drive, will connect up, I believe, with this phase. But the reason I wanted to talk a little bit is that I'm on the Huntington Park Water Trust. And just to give you a little background there, we were approached, the Water Trust, about whether we wanted to connect up with this water or not. And we had quite a bit of discussions with staff here last fall, but it kind of stopped because there's questions about exactly what was going to be done with this subdivision. In fact, the last that I knew, it was all going to be one big subdivision. Now I understand it's really two phases, which is fine. But what was discussed is, and there's no decisions about whether we want to connect or not, because we don't have all the information. But one thing that was discussed and even suggested by staff here is a discussion with the developers at the right time, and I'm not sure this is the right time, about setting it up so that, and I'm not sure what the terminology is exactly, not that we would use water from that comes into this new subdivision, but that there would be a connection, a valve. So if and when in the future that we actually could hook up quite easily without a lot of expense. In fact, really the staff said is it probably should be discussed because, and I don't know who it is, but they said, the person that's responsible for worrying about the roads and whatever really would not appreciate having the roads all torn up in the future, because the roads are going to be torn up to some degree because there's going to be a connection made to Huntington Drive for this subdivision, and therefore, if in summary, there should be a valve put in so that if and when in the future we ever do hook up with the city water, that it's already set up. The road doesn't have to be torn up, and everybody should be happy. There's not a lot of extra expense to Huntington Park.
Thank you, Mr. Jonas. Alderman Strelchuk.
So just a general question for staff and engineering based on that. I don't see. I don't see building this all out for anything that the city could use in the future, but this is terminating at the property line over by Huntington Park. So my assumption, and I'm looking for verification on my assumption, is that some of this has at least been taken into consideration, and the water mains are sized that if at some point in time Huntington Park did need to connect, there would be some water utility liaison that would help out with that transition and to help account for maybe some of the build out that this current developer is doing to get that water main right to the property line where it wasn't previously. So can you just speak on that and highlight for both resident and the people watching just where exactly that sits, because that is a question.
Yeah, absolutely. Our water utility handles most of those connection questions when they come up. There's a process in the water connection policy that goes through how people want to connect or how people need to connect if they want to. To the residents' question, there will be a valve located right at the edge of this property, as Joe stated, with the blow-off valve just for water quality, so they can flush that line. But yeah, absolutely, there's water utility staff available should Huntington Park ever want to connect.
Okay. Then one additional question, just in general. We talked about a lot of different things up to this point, things that we'd like to see and things like that. Based on what's in the packet, is there anything from a condition standpoint anticipating a motion soon that we should be cognizant of when making a motion so that we're not backpedaling at that time? And then to the developer, are all the staff's conditions to this point agreeable to you?
There's 25 conditions. Am I on the wrong page?
We're good with them.
Page 152.
Yep. So it sounds like the applicant is in agreement to all of these items. Back to the commission here, Commissioner Stoker.
Hearing no concerns, I was going to make a motion to approve per staff's recommendations.
Second.
Just for a friendly amendment, or if you would consider just modifying that for the two houses on that weren't part of the development, that the sewer and water line location can have some flexibility for tree preservation purposes.
I would accept that, understanding that it is totally determined on the stormwater management. I would not be proposing that the developer has to re-engineer or redo their stormwater detention or retention engineering in order to accommodate that.
Reasonable. Do you accept that? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Congratulations. We look forward to having this in our community.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all your time and help on this project.
Great
and
work.
Staffs as well.
It's going to be great. Let's get to phase 2 quickly. Okay. We are on our final item of the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Lakin, the applicant, is seeking rezoning recommendation to include an agricultural overlay and certified survey map to allow for 3 lots to be combined into 1 lot for the property located at 14207 North Birchwood Lane. Mr. Zader.
Sure. This basically is, this parcel is kind of coming full circle. A number of years ago, I have it on the screen, this was actually one big parcel. It was originally split into 4 with an outlot that was in the back to protect the wetlands. When Mr. Lincoln bought it, he rezoned the parcel to remove the PUD, and he rezoned it back to R1 to allow for 3 6-acre lots. Now his current request is to rezone it R1 OA, which would be, and then it would have to be made into one large lot. And the rationale behind that decision is he wants to eventually build a agricultural building out there, and you cannot do that unless you have the OA, and you can't have the OA unless you have at least 10 acres of land. So this request would basically be contingent upon that CSM being approved to combine that into one prior to Common Council action on the rezoning to change the zoning from R1 to R1 OA. Staff does recommend approval of this change, and just for a further caveat, any agricultural building in excess of 1,000 square feet would have to come back in front of the Planning Commission at a future date. I believe there's one condition he wanted to question that was an engineering question. I'll let him bring that up, and I'm sure Cole can address the issue.
Thank you. And no one was registered to speak, so why don't we turn it over to Mr. Lakin if you have anything to add.
Oh, that's better.
Yep, you got the button down.
Anyway, I got the button now. I haven't read the condition the way Cole amended it. Sorry, Cole. What do you call it? There's a condition on there for wetland delineation of some sort. I believe, I don't know how it reads currently, the way you've amended it, so I never read it.
Well, it's got to be a current wetland delineation.
Anyway, real quickly, before it was being divided for development purposes, so obviously we have that condition. There is no, this is, the condition itself is quite frankly meaningless to me, but as a point of property rights, there's no state statute or city ordinance or city policy that would require such a condition on empty, just vacant lot. The condition is already in place for when I do build. So for purposes of just my mental satisfaction, I'd like it waived, nothing more than that.
Sure, thank you. And again, there is an older wetland delineation, it's just not updated. And then now we're recombining it, and you want it updated before we recombine?
Correct. So that was condition number 3. In talking with the applicant, actually what we did last time with the past land division was just add a deed restriction before any structure can be put on that, because what we're trying to verify is that there's no structure being put in that wetland setback, and we obviously need to know where the wetlands are for that. So I have some maybe a proposed change to number 3 if you guys are willing to entertain that.
Please.
So I would just ask that the property shall be deed-restricted from development until a current wetland delineation is performed and approved by the City of Mequon and DNR.
Let's go. So I need to ponder that one. Let's go over to the commission and see if you have any thoughts on this. Alderman Strelchak.
So one bigger lot, that's great. You're moving in the right direction for the rest of the city. Thank you. The law of averages are moving in our favor. Just wanted to know, for like an ag overlay and exterior structure, do they have to be performing agricultural activities and have that proven in order to justify any structure, or is there?
They have to be used for agricultural purposes, but there's very little verification on our end. This has come up in the past. I mean, I don't remember. I think maybe 1 or 2 of you were on the board a number of years ago, and there was a debate over an agricultural building on a parcel that had no farmland, that just had a wetland, and he basically wanted to use it to store machinery for a wetland scrape he was doing once a year. Now, there was no way for us to verify or prove that case, and we don't go back on an annual basis, but we do add a condition of approval that the building can only be used for agricultural purposes on that site.
Perhaps something to review in the future, but not tonight.
Yeah, we tried to address this issue a number of years ago. It didn't seem like there was a lot of appetite to make a change to that, but I think there is somewhat of a loophole in the code that does allow people that have the OA to build very large outbuildings that the rest of the residents do not have that ability to do so. And there's nothing preventing them other than just the condition that they cannot use them for personal use or personal storage.
It's still a huge property that needs to be maintained, and it's going to have equipment, and I mean, needs to be in something. I mean, I understand there's a setback from the road, which is my main thing, so we don't have a pole barn right on the road. But
Yeah,
it's
there's
well
a
over
bunch of
100 feet back, is my understanding.
This R1 setback would be 100 feet from Birchwood Drive, yes, and 30 foot from the side yards.
Cole, is there something that prevents us from waiving the updated wetland delineation requirement, or is that a requirement? Is it a Mequon thing or a DNR thing?
There's language in our code that does require wetlands to be shown on any land division. But like I said, what we're trying to verify is just making sure that impervious surface, buildings, driveways aren't put in that setback. I mean, most of the time, land division is accompanied by some sort of development, so that's why it's in that section.
And we've done this before numerous times. I mean, on a smaller lot land division, we want to know where the wetlands are to make sure we have buildable lots.
Okay.
On bigger ones, and on bigger ones, we're not as concerned with that, but we do want to make sure that they have the ability in the future to build something. And we've done this on a couple other CSMs within the last couple of years where they didn't want to go through the expense of a wetland report. One of them was there was a CSM, a one lot CSM for someone that just wanted to hunt on it. So he didn't want to go through that process. So we put the deed restriction on and said, okay, if you ever come back, you want to build, you're going to have the wetland delineation. And it's marked on the actual CSM, so there's no confusion to a future buyer as well.
Okay. Mr. Lakin, which would you prefer? Updated wetland delineation or a deed restriction? We have to be consistent.
A deed restriction.
It's a temporary deed
a deed
restriction.
restriction clearly, but my point there is
I understand.
it needs to be done. The wetland delineation needs to be done before building anyway, so it's kind of a redundant thing. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. And I drive my tractor there all the time, so I'm kind of a Forrest Gump over there for agricultural use.
Thank you. Any other feedback from the commission? Great. Seeing none, we'd entertain a motion from anyone.
I'd move approval with the deed restriction as staff indicated on item 3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Congratulations, Mr. Lakin. Okay, going into the tail end of our meeting here, the announcements. The next meeting is Monday, April 4th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
24th.
24th, thank you for the correction. Monday, April 24th, 2023 at 6 p.m. There are no further announcements. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?